everybody. How are you today? Thank you for stopping in. If you're new, thank you for coming back if you've been around for a few videos. I really appreciate you joining my family, and I hope we can continue to grow together. Today we have a really good recipe. A lot of people turn their nose up at it when they find out what it is, and after they taste it, they are just amazed at how good it is. So today we're going to make spicy chocolate bacon brownies. They are so delicious. They're one of Mike's favorites. If you're not a fan of spice, leave the spice out. They still taste good without it. So with that being said, let's get busy and let's get cooking. Okay, to start the recipe off, I've got a pound of bacon that I'm going to brown up. I've got it cut up in pieces and I'm going to brown it up. And then once it's done, I'm going to put it on a paper towel to drain it. And that will be the first part of the bacon. And while the bacon's frying, I'm going to go ahead and in my double boiler, which really isn't a double boiler, it's a favorite metal bowl that I have, over some hot water. It's important that you make sure that your hot water doesn't touch the bottom of the pan, because you want this to melt and not burn. And what I'm going to do here, which I should have done before we got started, is I got a stick of butter. We're going to start out with a stick of butter, and to that we're going to add a half a cup of cocoa powder, and then to that we're going to add a half a teaspoon of our special pepper blend. Now I only use a half a teaspoon because this stuff is new and it's actually pretty potent. So a half a teaspoon versus the teaspoon I used to use will work good for this. Let's see. There we go. Looking for a good spoon to stir that up with. I need something to set this on because this chocolate makes a mess. I've got my spoon rest out. And basically what we're going to do is melt the butter and the cocoa powder and the pepper together, and then remove it from the heat and let it cool for a little bit when we get to the point where we're going to make our brownie batter. This bowl brings up some funny memories. When I lived in Colorado from 82 to 87, one of the gals I worked with was having a birthday, and we used to pick on her all the time because of her big bosoms. She was probably 5'3", but she had some pretty big bosoms. And I wanted to do something special for her, and the joke was the bosoms, so I made her a bosom cake. I didn't have the right accoutrement to make the cake, so I ended up buying a set of metal bowls. There were only 2 bowls in the set, but I didn't need this big one. I needed this little one to make the bosoms. And actually the cake turned out fantastic for somebody who never decorated a cake in her life. I got it decorated and it looked great, and they loved it. So that's my little tidbit of my past life. I lived there for 5 years. I lived in Breckenridge, Colorado, and I was housed for the first 3 years I was housed at the property, on the property, in the dormitories, and then once I got promoted and I made more money, I moved off the property and rented an apartment. But those were my growing days, and I have to tell you that little town I lived in was so beautiful. I was right across from the ski area, Peak 8, and it was just so gorgeous. In the wintertime, you'd get up and you'd see the ice crystals. Excuse me. You'd see the ice crystals in the air from the cold. but you could go outside in a short and t-shirts and it'd feel like it was 70, 80 degrees when you were in the sun. Just amazing. The scenery, the people, such a laid-back community. In the winter, in those days, in the winter, the population would be between 70 to 80,000 people. And in the summer months, there'd be like 3,000 or 4,000 people, if that, because it was just such a transient community. And just a fun time. Like I said, that was my growing up period. I truly loved it. I did say that if I ever went back, I would love to live in the Pikes Peak region because that area is really gorgeous. Even their bad parts of town look good. So we're gonna just let this stuff cook in the first part of the recipe, and take it from there. My bacon's all browned. I need it crispy for this recipe because I want to render as much fat out of it as I possibly can, because I don't want it adding too much to the recipe and then the brownies don't turn out right. So I'm going to go ahead and get the bacon out of here, and then we will be ready for the next step after the bacon cools and the chocolate cools. I'll see you in a minute. Okay, the next step is the final process for the bacon. I don't want these big chunks in the bacon, so I'm going to break them down a little bit. I'm going to throw them in my food processor here. And I want to get them down into tiny bits, like bacon bits, so that they won't be big chunks in the brownies themselves. So we're going to pulse these a few times, get them broken down, and then we can start our batter. there. Almost there. And we are there. That quick and easy. And now what I'm going to do is transfer these to another bowl, and we'll get started on the actual brownie batter itself. So now we're getting ready for our brownie mix, and the first thing I'm going to do is add 3 large eggs. The actual recipe calls for medium, but for some reason I can't find medium eggs anywhere in the grocery store. And if you're wondering why I'm cracking them one at a time, it's because even though these are store-bought, we do get farm fresh eggs on occasion, and sometimes those farm fresh eggs are fertile and you don't want any funky things in your mix. As I said, these are at room temperature. So I've got the 3 large eggs. Now I'm going to add my quarter teaspoon of salt, sorry. And we're going to pick this bowl up and start beating. If I can get it up. Okay. It's my first time using this little bowl. I hope it works well. It's going to get a little loud, so you won't be hearing me talking. Let me adjust you so you can see it a little bit better. There you go. I want to get these fluffed up so that when I add my other ingredients and bake it, it just has a better consistency. As you can see, they're sort of fluffing up a little bit. I want to beat some air into those eggs before I start adding the other ingredients. Okay, that looks about right for my brownie mix. So now what we're going to do is add a teaspoon of vanilla and gradually add in 2 cups of sugar. I kind of want to cream this in there. Not going to stop the mixer when I'm doing this, you don't need to, but as you can see by the sugar I got on the top of the beaters, I am new to this little game, but I love this KitchenAid mixer. It is a game changer in my kitchen. I just love it. I've been using it a lot. Okay, so we're done with that. I'm going to drop this down. I'm going to get my beater off of here. Shake it off a little bit. And I'm going to take this bowl off of here because now we have to start mixing our other ingredients in. Let me get this moved out of the way. Sorry about that noise. So now, what we need to do next is we're going to fold in. You don't want to mix at this point. You want to just fold in your ingredients, because you don't want it to kind of drop. So I'm going to add a little bit at a time, some flour, a cup of flour. Get that stirred in and mixed in really good. And while I'm adding the flour, I'm also going to add, I've got a cup of chocolate pieces, but I'm going to add half of that. I'm going to add a half a cup to it. And in addition to that, I'm also going to add half of the bacon crumbles that I made. And keep mixing those in. And I'm also going to add the chocolate, the melted cocoa powder and butter. So I want to get that in there too, and I want to fold that in. So get that in there. And it's been cooling for a while, so it shouldn't affect the brownies. They say if you put the cocoa mixture in when it's too hot, it causes your brownies to be really, really chewy. And I don't know about that. I just make them. They just taste good and everybody likes them. So we're going to fold that in. And if you want to know about this recipe, let me focus you in, you guys. If you want to know about this recipe, the original brownie recipe itself, I got from The Joy of Cooking. On my book, it's page 701. That's pretty sad that I know that. If you have A Joy of Cooking, it may be on a different page, but it's Brownie Cockney. And I've just sort of been able to adapt this over the years. I want to get the flour mixed in really good for our batter. And we're just about ready to get this in the oven. I'm going to do something different this time. I'm not going to put it in a cake pan or a 8x8. I'm actually going to scoop this into cupcake cups and see if we can make individual bites instead of having to let it, well, you still have to let it cool, but at least you can have the bites, individual servings, instead of having to cut it up into pieces. So that's what we're going to try. It's almost ready to start putting in. It's a good thick batter this time too. Put it in our cupcake cups. So let me pause you, give this a few more stirs, and we'll be back. On to the next step. What I'm going to do for the first time, I had to research this because I've never done this before, in cupcake cups, is we're going to put these little paper doodads in here. And then we're going to fill each one with some of the batter. And according to everything I researched, the baking time is shorter than the recipe calls for in The Joy of Cooking, and the temperature is lower. So once I get all of my batter in here, I preserve some of the bacon and some of the chocolate because I'm going to put that on top of it. And to give it a little bit of a topping. And now we're going to fill these cups. I don't know if I'm going to use all of these cups. I don't know if I have enough batter, but we're going to give it a shot. So I got my bowl here. I'm going to use me a handy dandy scooper and scoop some of the batter in these. I'm not too worried about them over-rising because the brownies really aren't going to rise that much, I don't think. But I think I'm going to cut back on that. There we go. A little bit more. We'll see how this works out. If they bake over, they bake over. They're still going to taste good. So, there we go. Okay, so now that I got my batter in there, I'm going to take the bacon bits, the reserved bacon bits, and I'm going to put them on top. Now we're going to add chocolate pieces. It's not bad enough there's a bunch in it. You want a bunch on it. This is a thicker batter than I'm used to. I think the time of year and the temperatures really affects things. And I do have some extra batter left over, so it looks like I'm going to have to get my one little small cupcake cup out and get a few more in the oven. Not a bad thing. The more the merrier. And there you have it. We're going to put this in the oven. It's at 350 and it says to bake it for 22 to 26 minutes. I will keep an eye on it because I'm still not used to my oven and I really don't want these to burn. So we will be back for the final product. The brownies are done, and you can tell when the brownies are done if you stick a toothpick around the edge and it comes out clean, then you're pretty good to go. So let's see what we got here. So we're around the edge, and yep, that came out clean. And now all they gotta do is cool. Now these are puffed up a little bit right now. They will actually sink down a little bit because that's what brownies do. And I can't wait to dig into these because they look really, really good. I don't know if I'll do a taste test for you tonight, but I certainly will have a picture after everything is all said and done. I did end up having to get another one of my cupcake tins out, and I got 4 more brownies, so this is a pretty good batch. Thank you all for coming to visit me tonight. I hope this is a recipe that you can actually use, and you have a wonderful, wonderful evening.